What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the broader markets. I'm going to break down what data is coming out for tomorrow that could cause some high volatility, why the market's looking a bit more bullish in terms of direction as we're starting to see a big shift right now. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below, or use my QR code right here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvidia. Deposits $10,000 to get $300 worth of Nvidia, or deposit $50,000 to get $1,000 of free Nvidia stock. You're also going to qualify for a 3.6% APY base rate plus a 4.5% APY extra for 3 months, making the total an 8.1% APY. The offer ends very, very soon, so please check out my link down below or use this QR code right here to sign up. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the stock market. So I just wanted to say that right now, I think we're doing a good job at holding up on SPY and the QQQ relative to yesterday. Yesterday, the market saw this big sell-off towards the end of the day, and we saw SPY fill this gap at 672. But my prediction was that we would likely dip to fill this gap and see a bounce, and that's what's happening so far. Now, it's worth mentioning that when you look at SPY's chart, okay, for the last couple of days, we've been making lower highs and lower lows. We've been bearish on SPY, especially once we broke out of this pennant. But what's happening is that we dumped and we started to form kind of like a double bottom like structure. And then there is a chance that SPY is trying to pivot. It's trying to change directions. And by definition, that means that instead of making lower highs and lower lows, we're about to make a higher low and then bounce and start looking for a rebound move. Same thing with the QQQ. The QQQ is also making lower highs and lower lows right here. It's breaking down, and we're going to see if this bounces, forming a possible inverse head and shoulders, right? That could help us bounce to fully fill this gap. Now, the QQQ, unlike SPY, has not really gotten that big pump to fill its gap. I think SPY came very close to finishing it, but the QQQ still has room to go higher. The 4 hour is showing some life, and we're favoring some kind of consolidation before some kind of bounce that could be coming very, very soon, looking at technicals alone. And I think there's a good chance we do try to go higher if some things pan out. So I'm going to break down exactly what pieces of news can help the market bounce. So first and foremost, tomorrow is going to be Thursday, November 6th, 2025. There's not really much data coming out. We just have Barr from the Fed giving a speech alongside Williams at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's pretty much it. There's not really much coming out besides a bunch of Fed speakers. Now, the initial jobless claims data will not be coming out due to the government shutdown, but I am seeing some news that's coming out that the government shutdown may not be as long lasting now. It might be coming to an end soon because we're now looking at the 36th day, and also it's the longest government shutdown in American history. And things are getting much more serious, much more difficult for Americans. And I saw some big news that came out that some Democrats are now indicating that they want to be voting in favor of the short term Republican spending bill to reopen the government through November 21st. And that could be a good sign. I also believe that this is just dragging out for too long, and eventually there's going to be some kind of legislation coming out to once again fund the government. It's going to happen soon, and that could be a bullish catalyst for the markets. It may take a couple of days or another week or so, but I do believe it's coming very, very soon. On top of this, President Trump was giving a speech today, and he pumped the markets by saying that these are his quotes right here. He said that we have the greatest economy right now. He said that on Wednesday. And then he also mentioned that this is the golden age of America, and the GDP growth was almost 4% in Q3 of 2025. He's saying that it's triple or quadruple that of almost any other country in the world. And he expects the Q3 GDP growth of 4.2% or better. He's saying that the GDP is strong and the economy is very strong. Obviously, the stock market liked to hear that. President Trump also mentioned that the stock market is going to be making new highs, and he believes there's going to be a big bounce coming. So President Trump is saying there's going to be a big bounce coming. On top of this, the market's holding up quite nicely. We have a lot of good catalysts so far. Now, when it comes to President Trump's tariffs, this was once again under review from the Supreme Court. They were once again listening to many oral arguments in favor and against his tariffs. And so far, there's not a decision that's been made, but keep in mind the majority of the Supreme Court are once again Republicans, and we're going to see what kind of decisions they make if they favor President Trump or not. Of course, they're doing their job to be very unbiased, at least from what they claim, and we'll see how it goes. So we'll see what they end up saying so far, but as of right now, President Trump's tariffs are under review by the Supreme Court, and it's going to have a very, very big effect on the U.S. economy, whatever decision comes out. Finally, when it comes to earnings, okay, McDonald's earnings was not very good from what I heard, and there's not really much else coming out for today and for the rest of the week. This is what the remainder of the calendar looks like, as most of the important earnings are out. We dumped with AMD, Palantir, and all these other big companies which had their earnings, and now the companies started to bounce, which is what we were talking about yesterday. So, what do I think is going to happen to the charts? It's quite simple. Looking at the 30 minutes time frame for the QQQ, we have a possible inverse head and shoulders like pattern. Now, if the QQQ ends up rejecting, if we lose that 620 area, there is a risk of 617 or below again, and it's possible to get another dip like this to complete this right shoulder. But as long as we could kind of like reaccumulate here and hold up, I think the odds are favoring, as of right now, a pump for 630 all over again. A move just like this, if this is going to be a shift in structure. Before, we were just consolidating, then we started to reject, make lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. Now we could be looking for a pivot to see a nice reversal to return to fill this gap. Also, it's worth noting that on the daily time frame, we filled the first gap. I'm not sure if we come back down to fill the second gap. We need to lose like 617 to fill the second gap. That's going to be our critical support. But it doesn't look like we're going to do that. We still have this giant gap back in the 630s to fill. And as long as we don't lose 617, we could be looking for a bounce from here. There's a good chance it tries to bounce if we could hold key support. All right. So just to be clear, if there's lots of bad news that comes out, and if we lose 617, there's a gap to fill around the 612 area. But as long as we don't lose that, as long as we hold up the way we did today, as long as we don't do 620, we consolidate here, there is a chance that this is going to try to rebound and try to fill the gap above, taking us back up towards the 630 area. There's a higher probability of us bouncing looking at the current setup, but we'll see just to be safe. But that's what I'm leaning towards, at least right now. On SPY, it's the same thing essentially. Now, if you want to be bearish on SPY, you first want to see us lose 675 and eventually 672. That range needs to fail us, and we could be looking for 668. However, if we get back above 680 and hold it, I would not rule out an attempt for like 682 to 685 for a temporary bounce to squeeze shorts. When you look at the 30 minutes time frame, we're forming an inverse head and shoulders. I think we're doing a good job so far at holding up. Right, these highs could be retested. Before, SPY was clearly making lower highs and lower lows, it was rejecting, but now it looks like SPY is trying to pivot. And even if we do come down a little bit to reach us like 675 to 677, as long as we could hold and make a higher low compared to 672, we're going to be favoring an attempt to push higher for 681 and then eventually 685. I think there's a good chance we do something like this. Watch your levels just to be safe. If we hold 680, we're more bullish, but if we lose 675, look for 672. If 672 fails us, of course, there's going to be another leg down, but as of right now, it looks like we want to bounce if we hold these key levels. On the IWM, we're also holding up quite nicely. We held above 240. If we end up losing 240, by the way, that's going to be where our main support is. We could be dipping back down towards the lows. If we break 245, we're looking for an attempt to bounce. So this could be looking for a rebound move. A move just like this could be forming on the IWM for a temporary rebound. On ES, I need to see this essentially lose 6,800. If 6,800 fails us, we could be dipping to 67.65 or below. But right now, there's no sign of that. We're still forming kind of like an inverse head and shoulders. Could retest 6,800 before it tries to pivot. If we hold above 68.50, there's a good chance it tries to bounce higher. We're looking for a rally back up towards 68.86 in my opinion. So there's a good chance we try to bounce if we hold some key support. Notice that NQ tested the resistance becoming support right here, and we came down to fill the gap as we predicted. Now we're bouncing. This also resembles an inverse head and shoulders. We have a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder. We could dip a bit for like 25,600, consolidate before it tries to bounce. We need to basically take out 25,400 to be more bearish. As long as we don't do that, we could be looking for a pivot on NQ just like that for a temporary bounce. Even Bitcoin's bouncing, we tested 104,000, might come down towards 102,500 before it bounces again to see some more upside. Tesla dipped and bounced as you predicted, came back up to fill the gap because we saw some buyers stepping in as we're approaching the big shareholder meeting. Honestly, Tesla does look a little bit more bullish Might come down again tomorrow to retest like 460, bounce back up and continue to climb. I think there's a good chance Tesla goes a bit higher, but I can't make promises because now it depends on the shareholder meeting. Does Tesla pump like crazy or do we get a big rug pull? We'll see about that depending on how the meeting goes. So keep that in mind. The big shareholder meeting is going to be tomorrow after market close. For Nvidia, we pumped and dumped. We're kind of like trending sideways right now. We love to bounce near 194 and also reject near 202. Hopefully, Nvidia bounces here and pushes back up towards 198 to 200. If we don't, though, if we lose 194, we could be dipping back down towards 189. So I see some weakness on Nvidia unless we get a bounce here. It might bounce a bit tomorrow morning for 198, and we'll see if it rejects. Apple's looking more resilient, it's consolidating, but there's potential to go up to about 272. For a few more, we have Netflix. It's going to likely retest 1100 and we'll see if it rejects. Could go a bit higher. MSTR is going to likely be retesting 261 and we'll see if it rejects. Celsius should be retesting 61 and we'll see how it goes from there. Supermicro has been dumping quite a bit. We're approaching the support down here. It could be going a little bit lower to me. I would not rule out like the low 40s before it tries to bounce. So 40 could be being tested first. Palantir could be retesting 192 and we'll see how it goes. There could be a temporary bounce. Rivian got a nice breakout right now as we had once again some good reports that came out. We're going to be watching to see if we could hold above 15. However, typically when stocks make really big moves in one direction, they do start to cool off a bit. So it could be retesting like 15 flats, if not 14.75, and we'll see how it goes from there. SoFi is also consolidating. We have support down here at 29.4 and resistance around 30. It may consolidate for some time before it tries to bounce again. AMD is looking more bullish. As long as we don't lose 253, we're going to be favoring a push for 260. ARM is also ranged bound between 165 as our resistance and 158 as our support. Could be retesting 165. PayPal has resistance at 68.24 and 69. Might be looking for a small bounce towards that area. Coinbase is also trying to rebound for essentially 326, and we'll see how it goes from there. Amazon could be looking for 252.5 for a temporary bounce, but I would still be very careful with this because we're range bound. But it does look like it wants to go to 252. Meta is going to be favoring an attempt to get back up to about 640. It's been dropping quite a bit, so it is due for some consolidation and a push higher. And eventually, 654 could be retested, in my opinion. For Google, we're looking a bit more bullish. We're going to be favoring 288 for a temporary bounce. And Microsoft is showing some weakness, so we're seeing some tech stocks that are kind of mixed. We're favoring 500 on Microsoft before it tries to bounce. Oracle's also kind of like consolidating right here, showing some weakness, could be dipping towards 245 before it tries to bounce. The VIX is in the middle. Is the VIX about to see a big break here? Does it get a big rejection to continue to dump? We're in the middle. We could be forming either an inverse head and shoulders, which is the bullish case, or this could be a trap for retail. It's about to dump. It could go either way, so be very unbiased with this. Is the market about to bounce or get a rug pull? Watch your levels just to be safe. But as of right now, the setup is favoring upside as long as SPY could hold above some key levels. As long as SPY could hold 678 tomorrow, I think we favor upside. As long as the QQQ could continue this push and get back above 623, we're still favoring upside. So the setups are looking a little bit stronger overall, but we'll see just to be safe if these inverse head and shoulders pan out, for SPY and the QQQ. So watch your levels, guys. Thank you all so much for listening. And I'll be back very soon tomorrow with another update. Until then, I wish you all nothing but the best and peace out.